Hi everyone, and welcome into the Horizon League Network with Adam Coppinger. I'm Damon Lewis, and obviously tomorrow night, Adam, the 2010 Speedway Horizon League Men's Basketball Championship gets underway. 4 games, 3 of them starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 1 of them starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. This is a fun night. It takes place all across the league, obviously, but this is always a fun night to be a Horizon League basketball fan.
This is why you play the entire season in our league, to get a home game or to not have to play in the first couple rounds of the Horizon League tournament.
Let's go ahead and actually break down the 4 games that we're going to have tomorrow night. All 4 obviously can be seen on the Horizon League Network. Let's start with the 10 versus 3 matchup. That's going to be an 8 o'clock start in Green Bay as the Youngstown-State Penguins travel north to take on the Phoenix.
A series this year in the regular season where Green Bay took both games. I look at this game and I say the three-point line is going to be critical, because when Green Bay shoots the 3 really well, they're very difficult to stop. That's why they got out to such a good start this year. That's why they played well against teams like Wisconsin, because they shot the 3 well, and Youngstown State does not defend the 3 well. So if they hold serve, basically, Green Bay Phoenix, and they shoot well from the three-point line and don't get a hand in their face from the Penguins, they're going to probably win at home.
It's interesting, you look at these 2 matchups. The first time around, which was actually very early on back in December, Ramon Fletcher scored 28 points. Then the second time around, Troy Cotton was huge, was 7 of 12 from the three-point line. You mentioned he had 23 points in that game. This is obviously Green Bay's game to win. They've earned the right to play the number 10 team in the Horizon League in Youngstown State. But I still feel like if the Penguins can just keep Fletcher and Cotton to their average, what they typically do, they could be right in this ball game, because they were really in both ball games. They were in both ball games they played this year with Green Bay, both at the Resch and at home at the Beagley Center.
Green Bay's proven to be a really good home team. That's the one thing that kind of cautions me a little bit here when I try to talk myself into the Penguins making this a game. They're going to need scoring from a lot of different players. Youngstown State will. Solskis is going to have to play well. Cooksy's going to have to, keep those turnovers down, and Bright, and on and on. Those guys are all going to have to play well, take care of the basketball, and they're going to have to get points from maybe somebody that they don't get a ton of points from. A Dallas Block or an Ashton Ward's going to have a good game for them.
The second matchup of the night is obviously the matchup between the 2 closest seeds. That's going to be number 7 Detroit traveling to the Arc, taking on number 6 Valparaiso. That game also an 8 o'clock Eastern start right here on HLN.
A series where it went 1-1. The home team won each game. I look at this game and I say Eli Holman's foul trouble is going to be key, because the game that we did the game of the week up at Valpo, which is where this game will be played, when Eli Holman stayed on the floor at the beginning of the second half, Detroit went on a huge run. They were down 19 at one point and came back and took the lead. If he can stay on the floor, he really gives Corey Johnson some trouble. I think in the post, you make Johnson more of a three-point shooter, which he did really well at Callahan Hall. He had a big game on ESPNU. But if Holman can stay in the paint, I think that's a big factor for the Titans.
You mentioned the big lead that Valpo got out to in that second game. It was the same case, or the case was the same in the first matchup they had. Valpo had a 10-point lead at the half, let it dissolve and get away from them in the second half, and it was a 19-point lead for Valparaiso at halftime when they played Detroit at home. When they played Detroit at home at the Arc, and it took Detroit about 7.5 minutes to erase that 19-point lead that Valpo had built. I feel like if Valparaiso can get to the foul line, which is what they ended up doing in that second half of the second game against Detroit, if they can get to the foul line, they got to the foul line over 20 times in that game, then I think they have a good chance to win. They're a jump shooting team for the most part. They're not a team that gets to the line all that often, but that second game against Detroit at the Arc, that was kind of a stretch where they were struggling to find their shot. They weren't shooting very well from the field. And in that second half, Brandon Wood, Corey Johnson, those guys got to the foul line, and they were able to survive even though they gave up that huge lead.
I'm glad you mentioned the foul line, because I was going to mention it as well. Detroit was plus 10 and plus 17 in those 2 games in attempts. If you really follow college basketball, you notice attempts are actually more important than makes, because you're not going to bottom out and shoot 10% from the free throw line in a game. So attempts are more important. Detroit's been really good against Valpo, getting to the free throw line. If they can do that and get some offensive rebounds, I think they have a really, really good chance of upsetting the Crusaders.
Third game tomorrow night in the 2010 Speedway Horizon League Men's Basketball Championship. This first round of games taking place tomorrow night, Tuesday night. It's the number 9 seed UIC traveling to the number 4 seed Milwaukee. 3-15 for UIC in the league this year, Milwaukee 10-8, but both of these games were pretty close the 2 times they met this year.
A situation where they had in the NFL, where the last game of the regular season ended up being a first-round postseason game, and that's the situation here. UIC scored 47 points in the second half of their most recent game at UIC, and Robo-Krebs got going a little bit, and that has to be in the back of the minds of every coach from Milwaukee, because he's the one guy on that team where if he gets going, he can really give them a boost confidence-wise and on the scoreboard, because he can score a lot of points really quickly.
Panthers swept the two matchups this year. The first game was actually their Horizon League opener, way back in the early round of Horizon League games, and then it took all the way, obviously, until last Saturday for them to play again. So a big stretch between those two playing each other, and then they turn around and play each other again tomorrow night. I think the three-point line is huge for UIC. As you mentioned, their first matchup with Milwaukee, they were 0 of 14, and then the game this past Saturday, they were 9 of 18. And a lot of those obviously come from Robo-Krebs. For Milwaukee, I feel like post-production is huge. Anthony Hill was huge on Saturday for Milwaukee. He had 20 points. They need him to be big now that he's gotten himself into the starting lineup. And James Ayers as well. I know he steps out a little bit, but UIC doesn't have a lot of bodies to just throw at Milwaukee. Milwaukee has a lot of big bodies that they can continually bring in. If they get production for those guys, because Ricky Franklin is going to be productive from the guard spot, I think this is Milwaukee's game to win.
This is a good draw for Milwaukee. They get this game at home, and then they could get a Loyola team. They could play both Chicago schools. And they rebound really well. And that's something where if you have a strength you can just say before a game starts, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it really well. It's rebounding for Milwaukee, and they do it just about as well as anybody in the conference, rebound percentage-wise, rebound numbers-wise. They're a good rebounding team. And if they can continue that throughout this tournament, they have a chance to make a run to get here, certainly, and maybe get to that championship game.
Final game tomorrow night is the 8 versus 5 matchup. It's a 7 o'clock start in Cleveland. It'll be the number 8 Loyola Ramblers taking on the number 5 Cleveland State Vikings. Cleveland State, a team that we thought, for a while they were in the 2 spot, and then we thought maybe they would be in the 7 spot after what took place last weekend. They end up settling right in the middle at the number 5, and they're going to host Loyola.
Pace, rebounding, and turnovers are the 3 things to watch. Pace is Cleveland State wants to get up and down a little bit. Loyola, one of the slower teams in the country, not just in our conference, one of the slower teams in the country. Rebounding, you look at it and you say, Cleveland State's been really bad rebounding the basketball lately, and that's a strength for Loyola. A guy like Andy Polka can go get 12 and 15 rebounds in a game. If Cleveland State can limit offensive rebounds from Loyola and can get out in transition, they have a really good shot at getting this win. And then turnovers, Cleveland State's going to want to force them, and Loyola's obviously going to want to slow it down and make every possession count, and that would mean fewer turnovers for themselves.
The Vikings swept this matchup this year, won both games against Loyola, but obviously very close. First time they won by 5, second time they won by 3. You mentioned all of the turnovers that Loyola had, and obviously that was the case in the first meeting. They cut them down the second time, but they let Cleveland State do a better job on the glass, and that's obviously one of Loyola's strong suits. Cleveland State's done a good job of holding guys like Andy Polka and Jeff McCammon in check. I know those are 2 wildly different players, an inside player and a 3-point shooter, but for Cleveland State to be successful against Loyola, especially the second time around, they shot really well from the 3-point line. And some of that comes from having a guy like Trey Harmon, which they no longer have. That could be a huge factor in this game tomorrow night.
People forget how young Cleveland State is. They don't have a lot of guys, even though they made the tournament last year, the NCAA tournament, they don't have a lot of guys that got minutes back from that team. And Trey Harmon was one of those guys that got some minutes. So you're looking at Jeremy Montgomery and Norris Cole, and the rest of the team have to be just staring up at him and say, hey, what do we do here? and like I've mentioned several times before, I like Norris Cole in that situation. And if he has a good game, as he goes, so do the Vikings. They'll have a good shot at home to get this win. 4 games, like we said, tomorrow night. All of them can be seen on the Horizon League Network. Cleveland State and Loyola, that game starts at 7 o'clock Eastern, and then the final 3 games, Milwaukee hosting UIC, Valpo hosting Detroit, and Green Bay hosting Youngstown-State. All of those games will get underway at 8 o'clock Eastern on HLN, and we certainly hope that you'll join us on HLN. Myself and Adam will be live blogging all night long, obviously beginning at 7 o'clock Eastern for that Cleveland State-Loyola matchup. And once those 4 games are all finished tomorrow night, we'll come back on Wednesday, we'll recap the action, preview Friday night's second-round matchups, which will take place right here at Hinkle Fieldhouse, and that's all still just the beginning of all kinds of coverage that you're going to see from the men's basketball championship this season here on HLN. Thanks for watching our preview of the first round of the 2010 Speedway Horizon League Men's Basketball Championship. Keep an eye on HLN all week long for much, much more. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.